Hey guys, I am Nishcha and I welcome you all to the lecture 4 of Web Development of the Hackslash Study Jams. And today we will be covering hooks in React. So, as you can see on the screen, we will be covering three hooks today: useState, useEffect, and useRef. So, these are the three most important hooks in React that you have to learn to even make the most basic um, application. In our case, we will be finishing the stopwatch. In the last lecture, the front end was completed, and today we will be making the stopwatch functional. To make the stopwatch, we will only need useState and useRef, but I will also explain why we would need useEffect because, as I said, it's very important. So let's start with useState hook. So useState is a hook that lets you add state to functional components. It returns an array with the current state and a function to update it. So first we need to understand what is state and what is a component. And state basically is what keeps on changing on your website, something that is dynamic. And component is what not going to change, it will be immutable. So let me open LinkedIn. So we're telling you what state and components are using this. So this is my LinkedIn, and you can see this homepage. This is my network, jobs, listing, notifications. You can see this and everything else. So what is the state? State is, as I said, what will change. You tell me what will change. Whenever a notification will come, this notification count, the red color that you see here, this will get updated from 25 to 26. But this bell icon won't change, right? The notification that next year you see won't change. So the things that won't change are components, and this count that you see here is the state of this component. Similarly, if I get a new connection request, then this will get increased to one. If I get a new message, the state of this will also change. Now, here also, you see this card component, right? This card component that you see here, this will be the same. If I change the profile language, this is the state that will be changing. This won't change, right? Similarly, the circle that you see here, this is a component. My picture that you see inside it is the state. If I add a new profile picture, the state will change. Same for this. This is also a card. The things inside it will change, right? This analytics card, this will also be the same. But if the impressions increase or the search appearances increase, then the state of this will change. This three will change. This three will change. This 75 change. If I get new followers or connection requests, then this would change. Right. So I guess you understand what use state is. So use state will help you change the states that I just showed you. So how does that work? Just let's make a simple increment button that will increment the count. So let's comment out this first. And you might be thinking, why can't we just do this, right? So const count is equals to zero, right? And we'll make a button, name it increment, and then make a one click increment, and then implement the increment function and do count is equals to count plus one. So you will say that this should work, right? So let's see if it works. Also, let's display this count here. All right. So see, I'm clicking on the equal button, but nothing is happening. I am clicking it, right? Trust me, I'm clicking it. So why is that happening? Because when you click on this, this count is getting updated. It is getting updated, but your component, this app.js component, is not getting re-rendered, right? So if you want something to change, then this whole component has to re-render. And until it doesn't get re-renders, it will only show that previous thing that on mount got shown, and on mount when it first got rendered on this website, then it was zero. So even if it's changing, This zero won't change on the main website, so I can also show you that it's changing, right? So if you console it, count. All right, shit. All right. So we made it const, right? Let see it's getting incremented in the console, but because this component is not getting re-rendered, you can't see the updated values, right? So how do you make this page re-render? How do you make this component re-render? You use useState for it, right? So the syntax of useState is as follows. So this is the syntax you have to remember it. You have to make a square brackets. You have to make a count and set count. You can name it anything, obviously, and then use state important. So if you press tab, it will automatically get imported. Otherwise, you can import it like import use state from the reactor, right? And then initialize it with zero. And then you can show this count here. Let's comment this out first. This one. So this will be const, right? So you can see the zero is here, all right? Yes, here. And now you have to increment it and you will use set count for it. So set count is the way, the functionality that user provides to update this count, all right? The first argument. You can't just do count plus plus, you have to use set count, all right? And how do we use it? Let me show now. Uncomment this. And the increment function would look like this now. I will tell you about the syntax first. Let's see if it's working. So as you can see, it's working now. So what is the syntax? So in the set count, you have to pass the count as an argument, and then you have to increment it as such. So this is an arrow function, and you have to make the bracket for the argument, right? But if there is only one argument, the bracket is not necessary. So that's what I did. And this is the arrow function. That's how you can write functions in JavaScript. That's another way. And that's simple. That's how you make the use effect. So every time this set count is going to increase the value of count because it was a state variable, this whole component will get re-rendered, all right? And because it's getting re-rendered, you see the new value, all right? Then let's move on to our next hook, that is use effect. So before we understand use effect, let's understand what are side effects. So side effects are operations that interact with the outside world or have effects beyond the component's rendering. So if you are putting the set interval, right? In our case, that if you write a set interval, then this the set interval is not handled by React. It's handled by the web APIs. So that's an API call, right? So it sends the set interval to a browser, and the browser makes sure that the count is keep on increasing, all right? So another thing that you can do is fetching data from an API. That's also a side effect. How? Because, for example, if there is this is an API, and then you call it. So the data that will be returned from that backend had nothing to do with your components rendering. All right, it happened somewhere else in another backend to which you made an API call. Also, if you modify the DOM manually, that's also a side effect. If you subscribe to events like WebSocket connections, so what are WebSockets? So if it's used for communication. So if you're making a chat app, for example, WebSockets is what will help you in doing that rapid communication that you do. So if one user is sending something, the other user instantly receives it. So you have to subscribe to WebSockets for that. And if you are making timers or browser events, so uh, like we made a set timer, or if we have to start a clock, that's also a side effect. So these are called side effects because they don't just compute output based on the input. They affect things outside the component itself. Right. So what is the problem in running side effects in React components? Can you guess what is the problem? Because as I said, don't read this. As I said, whenever the state variable will change, it will get re-rendered. So do you think something can break? Let's try it practically. So remove the button. Suppose we don't want the increment button, we want it to increment automatically every 1 second, right? So what we use for it, we use set interval, right? And we say we use set interval. So let's make it a set interval. And I hope you're familiar with the syntax of set interval. You have to provide the interval here. That's 1 second. You have to write it in milliseconds here, obviously, and you will do set count. You already know this count plus one. So you think this should work, right? Let's see. See what's happening. It's so buggy. It's glitchy. It's just randomly increasing in any order. And let me show you why this is happening. Let's log this. 332, 58, 96. You might be thinking how so many times this is getting printed. This doesn't make any sense, but that's happening because of how React components work. So every time you change this count, right, the set count is going to change this count. It will increment it. As I said, it's a state variable. When a state variable changes, what happens? The component is going to get re-rendered. This whole app change will get re-rendered. And when it gets re-rendered, the count is obviously, if it's from zero, it will get incremented to one, right? Correct? But the set interval, this will run again, right? We don't have to run set interval again and again, correct? Set interval only runs once, and then it keeps a track of incrementing the count. But here, because count was a state variable and this component got re-rendered, there are multiple set intervals that are getting triggered every second this is changing. And that's why you see so many intervals being called out. And see, it's just incorrect, right? So let's stop it, remove it, right? So if you try to introduce side effects directly in the rendering logic of a component in the return statement or before it, React would run that code every time that component renders. This can lead to unnecessary or duplicate effects like multiple API calls, inconsistent behavior. Side effects might happen before rendering finishes, and performance issues. This is what we were facing right now. Side effects could block rendering or cause excessive re-rendering. We were triggering excessive re-renderings there. It wasn't quiet, right? And excessive set intervals were being called. So how useEffect manages side effects. So this is the syntax. You have to write useEffect. Then inside it, you have to write this function. This is optional cleanup function, and then there's a dependency array. So the first argument to useEffect is the effect function, where you put the code that for the side effect. In our case, it will be the set interval. And the second argument is the dependency array that you see here. This controls when the effect runs. This array tells React to rerun the effect only when certain values change. If you pass an empty array, the effect will only run once after the initial render. And the optional cleanup. If your side effect needs a cleanup, example, unsubscribing from a WebSocket or clearing intervals, useEffect allows you to return a function that the React will call when the component unmounts or before rerunning the effect. So use effect will only run the function that you provide inside it on mount. So what is on mount? On mount is the first time the component gets rendered on the website. So right, this was it. So when you run this, when you open this website, this is the first time it gets rendered, and the use effect will only run once or not. Isn't that exactly what we wanted? We just wanted the interval to start the first time, not again and again, only once. So if you put it inside the use effect, it will only run once. And if the dependency array is empty, this use effect will never run again. If you put something inside the dependency array, then it will trigger the use effect to run again. So that's the dependency of the use effect. If it's dependent on some variables, then if you pass a variable inside the dependency array, this use effect will run again. And the cleanup function is if you want to clear the interval, for example, if you want to clear the interval, you will just return it and it will clear the interval. So we'll look that as well. So just make use of it. Press tab, it will get important. So this is the syntax. Write a function, pass an empty dependency array, and inside it, here to the set interval. Like we're doing outside the user effect. Now, let's see if this is working correctly. So you can see that it's not getting bugged out, right? But it's jumping by two. Uh, Everything seemed correct. The syntax was correct. The logic is correct. But why do we see it jumping by two? You see it again. See it zero, then two, then four. That is happening because of this main.jsx strict mode. So let's remove the strict mode. Strict mode is not what we need right now. So strict mode is a functionality of React that renders every component twice. It's good for debugging, but we don't need it right now because as you can see, it's causing unnecessary, unintended stuff on our website. So now let's see. See, it's working correctly. Zero, one, two, and you can see that in the console, it's only getting called every second. Multiple set intervals are not being called. That same interval set interval is increasing the set count by one. So that's what we wanted. So now let's see if we want to show this and hide this, then how do we do that? And that will also help us understand the cleanup function. So let's see. So what we want is that let's make a button. All right. And this should help you show or hide this count. So how do we do that? So let's make a state variable again. Show and set show. And initially, let's mark it as true. All right. So now inside this button component, let's write some conditions. All right. If show is true, then show should be displayed. Else hide is displayed. So this is a ternary operator. So this is the condition. Show. If it's true, then question mark. It means then show will be displayed. Colon is else, then hide will be displayed, right? So that's the ternary operator for you. Now when you click on the button, right, then what should happen? The show should become hide and the hide should become show, correct? So one click, set, show will become what? It would become not show, right? Uh, all right. We forget to wrap it inside the function. That's what happened. Yep. So as you can see, the button is working now, show an ID. But now when we click on show, should show. And when we click on hide, then it should hide, right? That's what we want, right? So let's make that. Also, see, when it's showing currently, right? We want hide to be appearing first. So when we press on hide, this should hide. So let's implement that. So if show is true, then only we want the count to appear. All right. See, hide got hidden. See, it's working. That's what we wanted. So what it means is, so show is initially true, right? So because it is initially true, this statement is true, and then this get executed. So yeah, inside this app component, if you want to write JavaScript code, we have to use the brackets, these curly brackets, right? So this is the JavaScript code, right? If show is true, then this, right? That's why the count is being shown here. But the problem is, even when it's being hidden, as you can see, the count is increasing in the console. We don't want that, right? We want when it's shown, then only it increases. If it's hidden, then there is no point that it is increasing. All right. So let's implement that as well. So first we'll make the dependency of this use effect on the show, right? So whenever the show changes, we don't want this. So for that, sorry, for that we will give this an ID, all right? So now this is an ID, and now we will write the callback function return clear interval, and then pass that ID inside it. So let's see if that works. Um, so what we need to do is that if the show is false, right, then we don't have to start another interval because we don't want to write, we don't want another interval to be starting. So when we hide it, see the count is not increasing. What we didn't do before was that even if the show changed, right, show changed, but when this user effect to run again, another set interval started. So whenever the dependency array changes, the cleanup function runs automatically. That's what I said we will be learning in this. The cleanup function will run. So let me tell you the flow of this again. Right? So there is count set count is initially zero, right? Then there is show and set show. This is another state variable which is initially true. So inside the user effect, this will run on mount, right? First, show is true, the count will be zero. Then the use effect will run, right? If not show, so not show means the show is true. So this is false. So this is not going to run. This will be running, right? The ID will be set into this set interval. This ID variable will point into this, and then that it will increase count by one every second, right? So, but when we press on show, what will happen first is that when we click on this, this show will change into not shown. So if it was true, then it will become false. All right. So because it became false, then show will be shown, right? A statement will be executed. And because it's false now, then this count will never be shown. Inside the user field, the show changed. The variable inside the dependency array changed. So this will run. It will clear the interval that was before, and then it will rerun the use effect after running the cleanup function. Because the show is false now, it will return directly without starting another set interval. It will only start another set interval when we will click on show again, and then it will run this. Show becomes true again because it's true the count is shown. Count is not being reset, all right? We don't want the count to reset. We can also do that, but we don't want that right now. So the ID will be allocated to a new state interval. This will start again, and then it will start increasing the count again every 1 second. So that's how the use effect is going to work. And let me also show you if you want to, every time you hide it, if you want it to become zero, what we have to do is set show counts, set count becomes zero. So see, when we hide it, now we'll show it again. See, it's starting from zero again. But that's obviously not what we wanted. We wanted that when it hides, the countdown stops. The countdown only runs whenever it's being shown here. In the background, it should stop. All right, so that's the use effect for you. And now let's move to useRef, and then we can finally finish the stopwatch that you were making in the last lecture. Today, we'll make it functional. So useRef. So useRef is a hook that provides a way to create a reference to a value or a DOM element that persists across renders but does not trigger a render when the value changes. So key characteristics of useRef: persistent across renders. The value stored in useRef persists between component re-renders. This means the value of a ref does not get reset when the component re-renders, unlike the regular variables. And no re-renders on change. So changing the value of a ref does not cause a component to re-render. This is different from state, which triggers a re-render. So if you didn't understand something, you will understand when we will be implementing the stopwatch. So let's clear everything. Don't use effect for this. Don't need this as well. Right. So let's uncomment this. So this is where we were yesterday, right? First, let's rename this as start, right? Pause and stop. Also, count should be displayed here, right? It's initially zero. Now, when we click on start, what do you want? We want the set interval to run once. We won't be using a use effect here because it won't be the function won't be triggered on every re-enter. So even though count will be changing, the set interval won't run again unless we click on the start button again, correct? So first we have to add the on-click functionality to the button component that we made. So it's pretty simple, just write on-click, click, and export it. Now let's work on one button at a time. Comment this up on click start. So let's implement the start function. Function start set interval. 1 second. Already know this. Set count, count, count plus one. So start. So you're starting the timeout, but as you can see that it's stuck on one. You might be thinking why it's not increasing, right? It should increase. But the data syntactical error here, this should be count plus one. So one, two, three. Yeah, it is working fine. So we have made the start functionality, right? So now let's move on making the pause functionality. How do we pause it, right? So we have to clear the interval if you want to pause it. So you will say just write function pause clear interval in the ID, and you will say let's make the ID initially it will be null, and let's get this ID, and you will say this should work, right? Let me tell you that this won't work because see, I'm pressing the pause button. Trust me, I'm pressing it, it is not going to work. That's because, can you guess why that's happening? It has something to do with the re-rendering. So, whenever you click on start, this set interval structs, and this ID will point to set interval, but it will only point to it once. And as soon as the state variable that is count that is going to be incremented by one changes, this whole app component will re-render and then ID will be set again to null. And this won't be getting triggered again, obviously, because the start function won't get triggered and just press the start button. So now ID is always null. So when you press on pause, what is it doing? Clear interval? Null. That's not what we want. We want the ID to stay. We don't want the ID to change. And for that, we use useRef, as I said. That if you want it to be persistent across the re-renders, if you don't want it to change, then useRef comes into the picture. So let's name it count ID, useRef, important. Let's initially make it a null, right? And count ID. So we will use a dot current functionality. Why? Because so the count ID is the useRef. This returns as an object that stores the reference. So this null is stored into count ID dot current. So we'll use to store the uh, ID of the set interval into dot current. And whenever we pause it, we do count ID dot current. So let's see if it's working now. And let's pause it. See, as you can see, it's getting paused when you click on start. We'll start again. Let me tell you the flow of this. So the flow is as such that when you first press the start button, the set interval starts as ID, it's stored into this count ID. And even if it gets re-rendered, this won't run again. The useRef is being allocated this ID once. Now it will never get changed. All right. And then this will keep on increasing the count. And when you pause it, it will clear the interval. Count ID will get cleared. This interval will get clear. And we should also do we should also be setting the count ID dot current to be null, right? Because that interval is getting cleared, and there is one problem yet that we have to address, and I will tell you after we implement the stop functionality. If you can guess it, then guess it. So stop on click. So what do we have to change? It's almost the similar as this pause, right? So let's just copy this only. Stop. All we have to do is set the count to zero. Right? So when you click on start, it's getting started, and now when you click on stop, it's getting returned to zero. But there is one thing that we didn't do, and there is a bug in it. I hope you have guessed it. So, for those who haven't, let me show you something. Look what happens. See, when I click on start, the timer starts, a state interval starts, right? But what if I click on start multiple times? See, so many state intervals are getting started. We didn't fix that bug, but and we have to, right? So it's pretty simple to do. All we have to check is that if the count ID that we made, if it's not equal to null, then don't execute anything. Don't start a new state interval, just return from there. So start. Now, even if I press on start, nothing happens. See, it's working normally. So let me summarize the flow of this again. So we import useRef and useState from React and the button as well. Then this is the app, and this is a state variable count, and this is the state variable. This is the useRef count ID. This is the start function, this is the first function, and this is the stop function, and this is what you return. So here there is a count that you enter on the screen and three buttons. When these have on-click functionalities that were added here in the component. And whenever you click on the start button, what happens is this because initially the count ID will be null, so it won't return. Instead, the set interval will get started and count ID.current will start pointing to it. And every 1 second, the count will be increased by one. So that is the start button for you, see. And if you click on the pause, what will happen? It will clear the interval using the count ID.current, and then it will set it again to null. So when you pause it, the interval stops because it got cleared, right? And when you click on start again, then because it's again null, then a new set interval will start and it will start increasing the count. In this way, multiple set intervals are not being called. And when you click on stop, same thing happens. You clear the interval using count ID.current and then you make it null, but you set the count to zero. So whenever you click on start again, the count will start increasing from zero again. So that's the stopwatch that we have made. I hope you understood everything. And if you have any doubts, you can ask in the comment section. Thank you.